Hi, my name is Erin Perkins, and this is my presentation for EDL 851 on the legal aspects of teacher evaluations. Kind of to recap a couple things, a good solid evaluation system should include things like linked and integrated systems where the evaluators are trained on the scoring elements and they connect it with professional growth and accountability. There are validated evaluation measures that are pretty practical to implement. Um, and there's established credibility, including with the administrators, teachers unions, other stakeholders are in on the design of the evaluation, the development, and any revisions that it needs. An evaluation can't just rely completely on the judgment of the observer who needs to undergo training, stick to a rubric, um, but a few other elements in there so it's not susceptible to subjectivity and that evaluation is being used for its intended purpose. Some of the pros, obviously, of having an evaluation system is to provide teachers with feedback. Um, they need to hear what's going well, what's maybe not. Um, and when you've without someone else walking into the room to be able to give you a new fresh set of eyes, that may be difficult to determine. This encourages professional growth, so you don't get stuck in the rut, so to speak. You can get some other ideas and information on how to run your classroom and what other strategies and techniques might work well. And it also opens communication with other professionals. If you have someone who's coming into your room and observing the things that you're doing, then you're having a dialogue about what is being seen, why you chose to do the things that you did, and how to move forward from there. However, with any evaluation system, there are also some cons to these things. For example, one of them, if you are using a value-added model that is based on student performance, where student scores are what is determining the teacher's effectiveness, that's beyond a teacher's control. Ultimately, no amount of coaching or cajoling or these are how we need to perform on our tests and taking our time to do our best doesn't necessarily mean that a student is going to do that, and it's pretty easy for those things to be flubbed. You also may run into the subjectivity of the evaluator, who, for whatever reason, if they are not being ethical in their job, could skew an evaluation rating system. And then you also have the fact that in some places, after a certain amount of years, teachers may accrue tenure and may not need to undergo evaluations, which also kind of changes the ball game of how effective are they being, and do they feel like they need to change their game up, and are teachers being staying around who aren't as effective as potentially other ones could be. Some of the different court cases that I studied in reading through these articles for this assignment were the Teachers Association of New Mexico versus Scandera, where the state attempted to impose an evaluation school district on the districts, or for all the districts, when it is the school district's right to be able to determine which evaluation process that they are going to use, which I believe is helpful and beneficial because you're going to have different school districts that are going to want to focus on different things or may value different things based on population, placement, are they rural, are they urban, those sorts of things. And they may be looking for different outcomes for their students, different outcomes for their teachers. Therefore, they should be the ones who are going to get to determine what makes an effective teacher in their area, as opposed to that being a statewide decision. Even in the state of Kansas, evaluations could look completely different from inner city Topeka as opposed to rural western Kansas. So that was one court case that was being decided. Another one is Urbanski versus King, where teachers here were being penalized on the evaluation process because socioeconomic statuses were not taken into play, and how the effects of lower SES and poverty may skew test scores, and that is not something that was accounted for in their value-added models that they were using there, which teachers found to be ineffective and hard to be graded by those systems when those things were not accounted for. Another case that I looked at was the Houston Federation of Teachers versus the Houston Independent School District, where basically you just had a vague student growth criteria. It wasn't easy for teachers to be able to figure out what it is that they were supposed to be teaching towards or what they were being held to. especially teachers of students with English language learners, and if their standards should look any different because their student population is different. Things were not really ironed out black and white. Here in USD 437, we use the McCall-Kruse framework for a teacher appraisal process. This is consistent with 9 high-yield strategies that have been statistically significant to show an effect on student learning. So there's really 9 categories, and then broken down under each one, there's a rubric of different little subsets of what you're trying to hit, either with proficiency, with down to needs improvement. The evaluation process looks slightly different for teachers at different levels who have been working for lengths of periods of time. You're evaluated twice a year for your first 2 or 3 years, and then it's every other year for the next couple of years, and then once every 3 years beyond that. So even teachers who have been working for a while still receive an evaluation every 3 years. That kind of follows through the same process where teachers take themselves through the evaluation, the exact same rubric that an evaluator would use to evaluate themselves and to set their goals. They get observed. They review the notes that are being given to them by their evaluator. At a conference, they compare the ratings, establish any plan of action for future goals, and where to go forward from there. We all are encouraged to, and on evaluation years or not, write SMART goals for ourselves so that we kind of have a framework of where we're going, where we want to go, and what we're wanting to try differently, or where we want to see ourselves fit professionally within this next year to come. So if for some reason we had a disagreement within our evaluation procedure, it is laid out first of all that at any point in time in any evaluation, we have support from our Auburn-Washburn National Education Association representatives, of which there are there's at least 1 per building, if not 2, and you kind of have the hierarchy of chain of command of who you can go to help support you with that. But anyway, the evaluations get signed by both parties, regardless of if you agree or disagree, just the fact to say that you actually had the meeting. If you have a grievance in what your evaluation was, it needs to be documented in writing and given into your evaluator, and then conference at that first level. If that does not go well, we add in the Director of Human Resources for the conversation, and then can add in the Director of Teaching and Learning. And still, if a resolution cannot be reached on, what you believed your evaluation should or should not have said, or any sort of plan of action that they're proposing you follow beyond that, again, everything gets written down to show documentation, sending a grievance to the superintendent. Again, if that's not met, then a grievance to the Board of Education, and then having a hearing. That's the final step should things not be able to be resolved. And there are specified dates and timelines written in between each grievance period that need to be met, and are given to everyone so that people can make adequate adjustments or propose solutions, so everyone has time to really think on good answers and ways to problem solve. My take on things in any profession, people are called to be competent, reliable, and able to take direction. And education really is no different. Any other job has some sort of evaluation rating system, and teachers should as well. What many may want to deem a teacher's worth by is how much children within a teacher's care learn and perform. That's really only one aspect to what a teacher does. However, there is more to a student's education than his or her test scores. A teacher must prove herself in more aspects other than just that one. So while student growth is important, whether that is learning-based test score growth, whether that's behavioral growth, and I believe that the evaluation system that we use here at Auburn-Washburn kind of takes into account both sides of those things, not just test scores. But growing in all sorts of areas is what you're really aiming for as a teacher. So you need to have a multifaceted evaluation that shows that you are working towards the academics, but also working towards building relationships, other things that really matter in a student's life. And I also believe that tenure just can't be given. I mean, you can work in a job for long periods of time, and yes, that should give you some level of respect and being able to handle yourself appropriately and show yourself as a professional, but there also needs to be a time too that if you've become ineffective, that you're able to have honest communications with those around you in how to be more effective with the students under your care. Um, so it's not just a you've earned the right and everything gets to slide and do whatever you want, not make any changes sort of thing. There's a little, yes, you've earned a level of respect, but not a blanket pass to sit back and enjoy the ride the rest of the time. So um, those are my thoughts on the legal aspects of teacher evaluation systems. Thank you for your time.